What's up guys, Ghost here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second final stand map, Giants of Karelia. So for any of you who came along to the livestream last night, you probably saw that I was spending most of my time in the jets, at least whenever I could. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the jet gameplay on the map for today. Now I have to say that overall, my experience wasn't that positive. There are actually two AA tanks on the map. And in Conquest Lodge, one of them is at G flag and the other is at A. Now each of these objectives are just a stone's throw from each team's deployment respectively, so it usually turns out that one team will have the AA tank. But this is something we've never seen before in Battlefield 4. Usually the methodology is that there will either be two AA tanks, one for each team, and they will spawn in the deployment, so that way each team will have one AA tank at any given time unless they happen to capture the tank from the enemy team because somebody abandons it. The other system has been to have one single AA tank at one of the conquest flags somewhere on the map, but never have we seen two AA tanks, each of them spawning at conquest flags. Now the problem this is causing is that a lot of the time the enemy team will actually have two AA tanks, and if you guys can check out the map here and the way it's set up, you'll find it's really just a stone's throw for them to drive from the objectives that they spawn at down to the river, and in that position they can just dominate the airspace completely. Now I can understand to an extent why DICE decided to put two AA tanks on the map. It is extremely large, and that is probably an understatement. You really don't want to get caught as infantry running from one objective to another on this map. In fact, it really reminds me of the DLC from Battlefield 3 Armored Kill, which had four absolutely huge, ginormous maps on it, and they were a bit of a pain to traverse as infantry, quite frankly. But I'm guessing that this is almost definitely going to be the largest map that we will see from the final standard expansion. So I suppose in some ways having two AA tanks on this map makes sense, but when you make them available potentially to one team, it's just not fun for jet pilots at all. You know, you might be looking at this footage in the background thinking, oh, well, you know, you don't seem to be doing too badly, but this was literally 1 out of around 6 or maybe 7 rounds that I played where I actually did okay, managed to keep both of the AA tanks at bay, and I managed to keep the enemy jets at bay as well, but all of the other rounds resulted in me literally getting my arse handed to me the entire game. So I really think that's something that DICE needs to look at in regards to the CTE. This is of course still testing phases. This is just the alpha build of the maps, and I have to say, so far I'm pretty impressed. There are some bugs, but they do look fairly finished. There are definitely a lot of things they're going to have to tend to, and I think that those AA tanks should be somewhere high on their priority list. Now, something else you guys will probably notice that looks pretty cool is this huge thick blanket of fog and cloud that is up in the sky. So once you fly up high enough as a jet pilot, you are essentially hidden from the enemy unless they have 3D spotted you. So that's quite cool, you know. It means you can dive bomb down, try and get on top of the AA tanks and dive bomb directly on top of them, thereby making it very difficult for them to actually get a shot on you. You might want to use rocket pods on this map, in fact, guys. I was using JDAM for most of the footage here, but I did try out rocket pods. They're really nice for when you're above that cloud, because you may be able to see a tank that's 3D spotted, but you won't be able to see the physical tank or vehicle itself. So having those rocket pods actually comes in handy for just getting in a bit of splash damage, and then once you actually make it through the blanket of cloud and fog, you can unleash with your 30mm. But enough blabbering about jets. What about the rest of the gameplay? What about the map design? What about the infantry play, etc.? Well, as you can see, we have a river running directly through the center of the map, which splits it in two, and there are multiple wooden bridges across which allow for vehicles such as tanks and LAVs, of which there are plenty, by the way, to traverse across there. Now, these wooden bridges can actually be taken out. Not completely. I believe you can still get across as infantry, but they can be partially damaged, thereby stopping any armor from getting across there. The river is really only shallow deep, so you can get across there on a quad bike. You can also get across there in an LAV. Not sure about a tank. I'm pretty sure a tank can make it across, but you're going to be pretty open to enemy fire if you're crossing the river and not using one of the bridges. Now, on either side of the river, there are winding roads that connect all of the objectives. So this is a mountainside map. It's essentially a huge valley with the river at the bottom and the sides sloping up on mountains. So you really only have these winding roads to get around in a vehicle. Now, the bonus of being infantry on this map is that you can simply cut through the roads, you can go up the mountainsides, you can go along the river. There are also lots of underground passages, especially as you get over to C Flag, which is the actual Walker factory, which I'll come to in a minute. However, one gripe I have with being infantry on this map is that it's just too goddamn big. You really have to be in a vehicle, unless you're fighting over at C Flag, which is essentially a little indoor area since it's the Walker factory. It's sort of like a small operation locker. There are some corridors around there. There's this huge dome where they're actually constructing the walkers, and as you can see, the roof above can actually be caved in if you dish out enough firepower, thereby allowing vehicles maybe even to drop in there, as somebody suggested on the stream last night, but more likely infantry to parachute in. But unless you're fighting over this particular objective, you really just don't want to be infantry. It sort of forces you to pick up a vehicle from the deployment. I think there's something like 3 LAVs and 2 or even 3 tanks just at the deployment, and then you have the AA tanks spawning in at flags, some more LAVs that spawn at the flags. So you're really spoilt for choice when it comes to vehicles, and for people out there who really just enjoy the infantry play, this is maybe not going to be one of their favourite maps. As for new final standee weapons, we've got the good old MKV coming back on multi-kill vehicle. I forget the actual name. I think it's called the XD1 Accipiter or something similar to that, and it can be found over at A Flag. It's actually standing very close to the flagpole, so not too hard to find that one. And the railgun, the Rorsch, of course, is also in this map and can be found over at C Flag, not underneath inside the building, but rather on top close to a helipad. So overall thoughts on this map, is it my cup of tea? Yes and no, I suppose, is the answer. Of course, it is not finished by any means yet, but as you guys will know, I was very much looking forward to some more jet content with a new map. So when I heard that jets were going to be in this map, naturally I was stoked for that. Only to find that once I got into the jets, I was taken out by dual AA tanks for the majority of the game. So it was a little bit of a letdown. You can get some decent matches in, but if I was looking for a map to record jet footage on, that would most likely at the moment be the last map that I would go to, simply because of the AA tanks. Overall, I would say that the tank and LAV play is very enjoyable indeed, so if you're somebody who likes to run with armor, you're probably going to enjoy this map. If you're somebody who prefers infantry-centric combat, however, it might not quite be for you. However, I will say that the infantry part of the map over at C Flag mainly is very interesting. It's fun to play there. Once the roof has come down, there is some smoke and debris and rubble lying around inside, so it blocks your vision a little bit, and it makes for some interesting firefights inside there. All of the walker stuff and the architecture inside C Flag is also just really cool. I love the way they've done that, and the map overall looks rather spectacular. Now, one other issue with the map is due to its size once again, that you really have to have a full server in order to play properly, and when I say full, I mean 64 players. Time and time again, I joined a server, played one round, and then it switched to another round, and maybe 20 players left, leaving us with about 20 players on each team, and it simply wasn't enough. You might think 40 players in a game is a lot of people, but on a map of this scale, I was literally not running into anyone when I was driving around in the armor. It would take me a long time, and games that were often 20-25 minutes long ended up with me getting around 10 or so kills because I simply ran into enemy players so infrequently. So those are my thoughts on Giants of Karelia. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the next map tonight, and I will be bringing you guys a video on that shortly, as well as on the following map. I would love to hear your thoughts down below on the map, especially if you're an infantry or armor-centric player. It would be great to get some feedback from some people like that on the design of the map, what you thought about the scale, and all that kind of good stuff. Get some good discussion going down there, guys. Thank you very much for watching the video and supporting me as always. It means the world to me, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.